All right. Hey, Joe, thanks for calling in from the great state of Arizona, which is, just like the great state of Texas, but smaller and more to the west, I guess. I don't know why I brought that up, but anyway, good to have you on here.
I'm excited to be here. The biggest fanciest thing we've got in Arizona is the Grand Canyon, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah,
But I think you could probably fit like 7 or 8 Grand Canyons in Texas.
we
So
could, but we still don't have a Grand Canyon in Texas. We have the Santa Elena Canyon in Big Bend. And I think the best way I've described it to my friends is if you've ever seen Game of Thrones, the wall in the north, it looks like it is huge. Like it's tall and it goes like miles in each direction, left to right. And then there's this little tiny like canyon slot in the center that people like to walk up in a day hike and then walk back. And they don't go too far because if you get too far, you're in Mexico. And then you got to try to make sure like, did I have my ID on me to come back? There's just in case, in case the Rangers are there or Border Patrol shows up, you can prove that you are supposed to be in the U.S.
all right, well, now after everybody hearing that, y'all are going to want to come to Arizona and the Grand Canyon because you don't have to worry about any of that.
There you
Forget
go.
the little slit in the wall, huge hole in the ground. Although if you're not careful, you end up in Utah. So
Oh, there you go. And we don't want that yet. Awesome. So we got introduced through Interview Valet, and I love just doing a quick shout out to them every time they send us a great guest. I just saw Tom Schwab and Karen. We met for the first time in person. Karen and I did. Tom I've met before. I got to sit in on their conversation about how to become a guest on other shows and the tools they use and everything. And I remember standing up at the end and just throwing a joke in there. So I didn't tell you this part, Joe, during the record part, but he goes around saying that the hardest question he ever got was from this show back when we used to ask about your favorite Renee Zellweger movie or, 6 Degrees of Separation, Fact or Fiction. Like, how are you connected to Renee Zellweger? And so it used to be on Interview Valet's one sheet, be prepared for a question about Renee Zellweger. And so anyway, I stand up and I'm like, hey, Tom, it's Jerry. Like Tom and Jerry. And so people cracked up at that alone. And then once that died down, I said, I need to ask a question for clarification. What would you say is your favorite Renee Zellweger movie? And he started cracking up on stage. And I was like, no, I've got a serious question though. And then I got to the serious question. He's like, all right, cool. But then after your question, I need to tell the story behind that. And I mean, it lit the whole crowd up. I mean, they were already like taking notes and everything, but it was just cool, like, because he was able to weave that in and let the audience know, like, if you work with Interview Valet, we provide you with a briefing sheet of the shows you go on so you know what to expect. And it was just really cool. And then he got off stage and gave me a hug for that. He's like, that was awesome. I'm like, I had to do it. I'm sorry, man. I was like, if you ever looked my way and I was cracking up, it's because it was in my head the whole 45 minutes. I was going to ask that question. And he's like, it worked out well. So thanks,
yeah,
Tom.
Tom and Interview Valet, they're amazing. And it's not just the quality of service they provide, it's also just them as human beings.
Yeah.
Just phenomenal human beings too.
Yeah. So if you are interested in like publishing a book, promoting your business through podcasting, just reach out to me. I'll get you connected with Tom and Karen from Interview Valet, and they'll take good care of you. But yeah, Joe, you didn't come on just to help me plug Tom for plugging Tom. You yourself have a really cool program. You had a podcast that's currently on hiatus called Forward with Joe, and you've got a book specifically about how to succeed in marriage as a married entrepreneur. So obviously you're married, you've got some kids. We were just talking about them a moment ago. So I guess to kick it all off, how did you and your wife meet? I'm curious about that. I always love like origin stories when it comes to married couples.
Yeah, absolutely. My wife and I, we have a fun origin story. We met doing country swing dancing.
Oh,
And my wife's a bit younger than I am, and there was a group that I was a part of, and I wanted to impress some of the girls in this group by learning some more dance moves, and then show up on one of the nights that every Wednesday night there'd be this country swing dance, and I was going to show up and really impress them. So I couldn't take one of the girls from my own group. So I asked this girl, Shawnee, and I said, hey, I'm looking for a dance partner. You want to go do some dance lessons? You can learn some stuff. And she goes, yeah, sure. And so we go and we do the dance lessons, and I pick her up, and she's telling me how, she's she's in Phoenix on a soccer scholarship at a local university, and she and her family play on a co-ed rec softball team. I did theater growing up. I was not an athlete. I'm 6'3", so I like playing basketball, but I did theater, and I'm thinking, man, this, not only is she way super hot, but she is way too cool for me. And so I was like, well, that's okay. We'll just go learn some dancing and everything will be great. And then, so we do that. And then for the next few weeks, after she's just learned all these moves with me, after these next few weeks, I would only ask her to do like a country waltz. Mm-hmm. And after a couple of weeks, I go and I was like, hey, it's a waltz. You want to dance? She goes, no. I go, what do you mean no? I said, we always do the country waltz. And she goes, yeah, you took me to go learn all these amazing dance moves, and you only dance with other girls using those moves. She's like, so I don't want to do a waltz with you. And I said, well, come do the waltz with me, and then we'll do another dance after that. And she goes, okay. So we did that. We danced. And then I was like, hey, let's go grab a dessert or something. Let's go get an ice cream, or you want to hang out a little bit after. And she's like, yeah, sure. And then I'm waiting. And I'm like, man, what is she doing? She said she's just going to say bye to her friend. And I was like, this is dumb. I'm not waiting around. I'm my own man. I am my own man. I'm a good ticket. Like, I don't need to wait around, but I did.
Yeah.
And I found out later, like after we were married, the reason she took so long was because there was another guy that had asked her to hang out. And so she was debating which one of us to go hang out with, and go out to eat with afterwards. And she was talking to her friends, and she's like, well, Joe's this and this other guy's this, but she chose me that night, and she continues to choose me each day for the last 10 plus years, and I am eternally grateful.
There you go. Yeah, it's almost 20 years in a few months for my wife and I. And yeah, same thing. She hasn't fired me yet, is what I usually and yeah, I've given her reason to from time to time. And yeah, she still just does that forgiving thing. Now you have at least a 5-year-old who you've got a play date with in just a moment. You guys are going to do some Paw Patrol and
Paw Patrol's Discovered Dinosaurs. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, And so is that your only, and that's your son, right?
Yeah, that's my son. I've got 3 kids altogether. Okay. I've got a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 3-year-old. Girl, boy, girl. They're amazing. They are incredibly forgiving. Mm-hmm. And one of the things, and here's a quick tip right off the bat. It's important to apologize to your kids when you make a mistake.
Yeah.
I used to think I had to have this persona of perfection. The business world, you're the mighty boss. You've got this, this leadership, this authority, but those are some toxic concepts of leadership. Mm-hmm. And so it's same thing in the home. And I mean, my kids are phenomenal, because you ask them, like, we do a gratitude thing every night. Well, what are you grateful for? And we talk about what we're grateful for. And a lot of times the things that they say, that, they're grateful that daddy's still learning, or they're grateful that daddy keeps trying, or they're grateful that they can make mistakes and do better. And it's just this idea of that we don't, as strong men, as strong, powerful parents, it doesn't even matter if you're a man. I think sometimes there's this stigma of how men need to be, but women are powerful, and my wife as well. It's okay to say, I made a mistake. Yeah. And daddy handled that wrong. And, so like a few weeks back, I raised my voice, and I was not nice. And I said, I realized it. And so I said, hey kids, will you come with me? And we went to the bathroom. I said, was it okay how daddy talked? And they shook their heads no. And I said, was there a better way that daddy could handle this? And they said, yes. I said, okay, well, what happens when, we say not nice things, or we yell or things like that? And they go, soap. And I put soap in my mouth. Wow. Because that's the consequence they get. And then daddy sat in timeout for a couple minutes, and I asked them, hey, am I ready to get out? And then we talked about it. We talked about better ways that I could handle it. It's that leading by example. And that, I'm still loved and respected and admired, and I'm still their super daddy hero. So, but anyway, that's a little tangent, but there you go. 3 kids.
Preserve your integrity when you do something like that. I mean, that was something that was important for my wife and I. One of our, I couldn't tell you when it happened, but one of our, big arguments, the kind where they're shouting back and forth and a door gets slammed.
Mm.
And um, I've only gotten my wife mad enough once where she slammed a door where it took the door and the frame slightly out of the wall. It's still slightly out of the wall, so hopefully the handyman puts that back in place for us because we're going to put the house on the market soon. And I'm
Speaking
pretty
of
sure,
strong women.
yeah. Oh, I made her mad, and she's the one who can keep her calm and her cool. But I remember our kids being kind of scared about this. Like we
Mm.
were shouting back and forth so much that they went to their rooms. They retreated to their rooms. Now, Liv and I, we talked it out, and we hugged it out, and we were on the same page, and we apologized for the way we spoke to each other. And then it hit us. Our kids heard this conversation too, the loud shouting match. They don't know that we just had this makeup, that and I don't know why, but it just kind of hit me that all the folks I know of growing up who saw their parents fight like this, and that's all they saw. And they wondered, why did the parents stay together? Why do they seem so happy now that I'm older? And I realized because they never saw this part where
Mm.
we resolved things. And so I remember asking Liv, hey, is it okay if we bring the kids in here and talk through, one, apologize for how we handled this in front of them, but I think we need to inform them of what we did to get to where we are now. And so we called them in, and they looked so nervous. That also kind of broke my heart because they looked nervous, like they were somehow in trouble in all this, and they had nothing to do with what was happening. So we had to first say that, first of all, neither of you have done anything wrong. So if anything, you should be mad at us, and here's why. And so when we said that, my son's like, yeah, I agree. I'm like, no, okay, you're right. Okay. And then we said, now the other thing that you didn't see is that for the last 30 minutes, your mom and I have been in this room resolving this and talking it through calmly, and we want to let you know that's what's happened as well, and this is what we shared, and we shared everything with them, like, this is my stance, this was your mom's stance, and this is where we agreed. What do y'all think? And they're like, yeah, why couldn't you guys do that when you were out there? We're like, I don't know, we were mad. You get mad, don't you? And so, like, kind of connecting those dots, and then we had to do that just a few times. Fortunately, just a few times in our marriage. But every time, if they were in the room to see the blow up, we had to kind of bring them back together and say, all right, now let's show and talk them through and be transparent. So, and I think we did that. Well, I know we did it because we know that someday they're going to be adults. In fact, they are adults. Yeah, my daughter's 18, my son's 20, and they're both in relationships, and they handle it really well. It's it's just it blows my mind. They actually handle the relationships better than some of the things my wife and I handled. So it's really cool to see that. So I think that is important to do stuff like that and build their trust in that respect. So
Yeah. I love what you did, because the reality is, if you don't take the time to teach them to one, to acknowledge that you made a mistake so they know what a mistake looks like, two, to teach them how to get over that mistake so that they can learn you can overcome mistakes. If you don't teach them how to do that, if you don't say, here's what we did, here's what helped us to kind of calm down, here's what we did to communicate what was really going on, here's what we did to figure out what would be best for our family. If you don't teach them that, Jerry, if you didn't teach your kids that, who's going to teach them?
yeah,
Some TV sitcom or Hollywood elitist or
right.
Instagram influencer? Like, who do we want teaching our children these things? And so, and there's generational patterns that oftentimes need to get broken or need to get healed, or even just small adjustments as we go, because society changes. So
Mhm.
just the value of taking the time to teach your kids. And I think doing that, however many years ago that argument took place, and now you talk about, they're 18 and 20 and they're so much better in relationships in your life. Well, because they've been being trained
Yeah.
and educated on it for however many years. So good job, Jerry.
Thank you. I think the biggest payoff was seeing my daughter go through high school and not be manipulated by other boys.
Mm.
If somebody tried to, she's like, all right, well, bye.
Yeah.
If somebody was having a rough time and wanted to, like, make the relationship or connection, like, kind of awkward or try to leverage that in some way, she would just simply say, I think you need to go home and just work on you. And then once you've gotten yourself figured out, come back. We'll see if there's still something for us to work on. And so she knew I'm not going to be that person who goes out to save a drowning victim and get drowned myself. And so she
Yeah.
knew, like, okay, you're handling some stuff, some insecurities. You need to go handle that without taking me down with you. And I'm like, what? That is so mature. You're like, how old? So that she did not learn from me. I think she learned that somewhere, but she had the confidence to put that out there and share it and use it. And that just amazes me all the time. Now, there was a time, and you talk about this in your about page on your website, forwardwithjoe.com, that, you I don't know what the argument was about, but it actually ended with you smashing with your bare foot a cabinet, and frustration and all that stuff. And you had that pivotal moment where your wife made a choice to either walk out that door or stay and help you. And of course, spoiler alert, everybody, she stayed. Obviously, we just talked about his family, same folks. So, how old were you both, or how far into your marriage were you? And I guess tell us a little bit more about that. But ultimately, where we should land with that is, the positive of that you had that humility to ask for help, and that turned things around. But you also had this realization in your head that we'll get to in a moment. But I guess give us a little bit of a foundation for where that turning point was.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great summary. I mean, essentially, I did a man-sized tantrum. It's funny you said you don't remember what the argument is about. I don't remember what the argument was about. Whatever it was not important. But what I learned from it was, and there were a couple of things. And I think one of the things that I don't mention too often is what I learned from that experience is that my good friend Brian McRae, his marriage advice is, people always ask, he's married almost 30 years, and people ask, well, how do you stay married so long? He says the secret to a long marriage is you both don't give up at the same time. And I remember I hadn't been married very long when I heard that, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah. But then the more marriage goes on, the more I realize the impact of that truth. And so it's one of the things I learned is that love is one of the strongest forces, is the strongest emotion, is the strongest force. But even within all of that strength, it's still fragile.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's the type of love, and I'm kind of processing this right now with you, but maybe it's the type of love, maybe it's this intimate love, because there's the love that keeps a marriage together or keeps it strong, because so much of it hinges on trust. And if you don't meet your spouse until 20, 30 years into your life, you've had all of those experiences. Plus, even when you're with your spouse, you have all of these experiences where people are consistently breaking trust, or strengthening trust. I mean, it goes both ways. But trust can be fragile. And so now when you have this incredible, vulnerable love that comes with marriage, that it's fragile. And I broke it that night. I broke it. I mean, tell me what kind of man bashes in a cupboard with his bare foot and then expects his wife to stick around and be like, well, that was a silly choice, but I still trust you and you're safe for me. Yeah. And like, it doesn't work that way. No. And when things get broken, the good news is that they can be healed. Trust can be healed. Love can be healed, but it requires effort. And my wife walked down the stairs, and I had this huge chunk of wood sticking in my foot. And it was everything was falling apart right in front of me. Everything that I'd built. We've been married 3 or 4 years, and we had our ups and downs, but never anything like this. And it was always, I was mad. I was sitting at the top of the stairs, and I was asking terrible questions. Now everybody, if you are not getting the answers, the results that you're looking for in life, it's because look at the questions you're asking. If you're getting bad answers, you're asking bad questions. And if you ever ask yourself, like I did that night, sitting at the top of the stairs, my wife's ready to walk out the door, my foot's bleeding, I've got a piece of wood sticking in it that I can't pull out by myself. And the question I ask, what's wrong with me? And when we ask ourselves questions, the subconscious mind doesn't process it as good or bad. It processes it as a data entry that needs a response. And so you ask, well, what's wrong with me? And then it's going to go through all those files and I'm start remembering things that I haven't thought about in years of all these terrible decisions I made, or all these evidences that I'm inadequate or that I'm not good at relationships. Specifically, it revolved around relationships. And I thought of all these, every relationship fails until the one that doesn't, right?
Yeah.
All these terrible relationships and all this stuff starts coming to my mind. And it was just this desperation of, what am I going to fight for? What do I really want? Do I really want her to go? Absolutely not. Like and I asked for help. I said, wait, please. And it wasn't pretty. And look, and as parents, as spouses, in those times where it's most important for us to ask for help or to communicate, let's let go of the need for it to sound pretty, for the need for it to flow just right. Yeah. Let's let go of that and let's just open up and let the words out. And so I asked for help and she stayed. And then I thought, okay, this can't happen again. My foot can't take it. I don't want to be wasting money on replacing furniture. And the trust and this vulnerable love deserves better. My wife deserves better. I'm going to be that man. And so then I set out to figure out, all right, let's do this. Really good at business, really good student. Let's go learn. I'm going to learn. I know I learned how to do business. Now I'm going to learn how to do marriage. Now I'm going to learn how to be a better husband, be a better dad. And so I set off on this journey to absorb everything I could that would help me rescue my marriage.
Yeah. Yeah. And you talk about that in your book, and folks, you got to get a copy of it. It's a short read. So if you think, oh, I don't like reading books, they're long and they're boring, it's 31 pages long. You can read this. This is awesome. He gets right to the point and the gold nuggets are there. So you made a commitment. You made a choice up at the top of those stairs asking for help. And that was like step one. And then, at that point, the ball was in her court, and she said yes or yes again to the marriage by coming back up and helping you. And then it's what you did afterwards that really made a difference. I believe that you didn't just say, good, I saved it. Whew, said what I needed to say. You truly took steps to learn as much as you could about marriage. And it sounds like you came across a realization that there are no such things as business principles and no such thing as marriage principles. They're just principles. And so if they apply in one area, it's a principle because it can also apply in another. And that just blew my mind. And then later in the book, you use a SWOT analysis to determine, if something's to be done or not. So you're literally taking a business practice and applying it to your family and your marriage. So I guess for our listeners, some folks know what SWOT analysis is, and others are like SWAT team. No, a different SWOT. Business folks use it to decide what is the strategic initiative to take, or is this an initiative to take, or what's just the state of our business. So if you can just tell folks real quick, what does SWOT stand for, and then how do you apply it to your family?
Yeah, you got it. Well, first of all, anytime you start talking business and family, I remember several years into my journey when I started realizing this, Jerry, I used to think that my superpower was communication. Oh, Jerry, I'm an amazing communicator. And then I got married and realized I didn't know jack squat about communicating. And which then clearly meant it was my wife's fault, and she was a terrible communicator. And that's probably what led to my man-sized tantrum. Some of the things, that attitude at least. But then as I started diving into these things, I'd be sitting in these group conversations and with other men trying to figure out what's going on in their marriage. How can we support each other? How can we strengthen each other? And these are highly successful businessmen. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I was doing some highly successful business things as well. And I remember sitting there thinking, this is stupid. Like how he's complaining. This guy is complaining about the same thing. He's bringing up the same thing he brought up 2 weeks ago and 6 weeks before that and 3 months before that. And I was like, okay. I said, look, if this was your business, how would you handle it? He says, oh, well, I would do this and I would do this. And we started talking about like, okay, so I started using business analogies and talking about what he could do for that. And he was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And then somebody else chimes in and they're like, Joe, no, you can't treat family like a business. And I tell you, Jerry, if you can't treat family like a business, if you can't lead your family like you would lead a business, then you need to review yourself as a leader in business. And if you understand the most powerful principles of real business leadership, not dictatorship, not taskmastership, if you understand those true key elements, now you can get at the core of it.
Yeah.
Because absolutely, look at the greatest leaders throughout time, true leaders, and what they've done and how they taught and how they led. Absolutely, you can apply that to business.
Oh, yeah.
So going with this example, the SWOT analysis, how often in business are we evaluating where we're at, where we've been, where we're at, and where we want to go? Now, SWOT analysis there's two parts to it. There's the internal part, what's going on inside your business, and what's going on outside your business. And the S and W stand for strengths and weaknesses. What are our internal strengths and weaknesses? And a strength might be you're great at networking and you have a strong social media platform that you utilize. And, those might be some strengths. And then maybe your weakness is that you have a small email list, or you don't have good systems or processes in place. So those are kind of things inside the business. Now, the O and the T of SWOT, those are opportunities and threats. Mm-hmm. And those are outside your business. So the opportunities could be, okay, you know what? Everything with this, what's been going on in society with the pandemic and different things, we've got, we have an opportunity. People are switching to more virtual and more Zoom. And so now we can expand our team internationally. Or maybe we see it as threats. Maybe you're a brick and mortar business, that how do we make people feel safe to come to our brick and mortar business? And here's a quick expert tip. 99.9% of threats can be turned into opportunities with the proper perspective. So, side note.
Nice.
So you go, okay, so those are things outside of us. Well, how does that apply to home? All right, well, with family, here's what you're going to do for a SWOT analysis on your family. And I've rebranded it because SWOT analysis can be triggering. People go, I hate SWOT analysis. I remember learning that in school and doing it in business. I don't want to do that. So it's a family relationship audit.
Nice.
Not that audit is any less triggering, but it generates a better response. But essentially, we want to analyze the situations. Now, please note, analysis does not equal judgment. This is not an opportunity for you to mentally and emotionally abuse yourself for the mistakes that you made. This isn't time to undercut your strengths and overemphasize your weaknesses. This is an opportunity for honest reflection. And look, maybe your family's doesn't want to be involved. Maybe there's some of you out there, Rudder Nation, who you feel like you're the only one ready to make this progress. That's okay. You can do it on your own. Choose one relationship at a time. I'd suggest you start with your spouse. Say, what are my strengths in my relationship with my spouse? What are my strengths and how I'm interacting with my spouse? Remember, this is everything internal. What's going on with you? This is judgment free. You have permission to let go of judgment and just to write down some facts. All we're doing right now is gathering data. And then we're going to gather data on your weaknesses. Where are you struggling? Are you still courting your wife? Are you still going out on dates together? Are you still having alone time? Or do you guys plop down on the couch and watch Netflix? Now, judgment free. My wife and I plot down and watch Netflix. We really enjoy the show Alone right now. But side note,
it's a good show. Yeah. Anyway.
And but this is, so there's no judgment. It's just figuring out where we are.
Yeah.
Because until you discover where you are, you can't truly decide what you want to do about it.
Yeah. That's the same with
So
navigating too. Like if you need to get to a point B, you need to know where you are now. And because that's going to determine direction, speed, how many times we need to gas up the car, or if you're hiking, like I like to do, how many, am I going to make my destination by nightfall, or do I need to add an extra day to this trip? So yeah, you gotta do this type of analysis because it's going to tell you where you are currently and the reason why. So the why behind this is because it's going to help you determine how you're getting to where you want to go. So yeah, definitely.
yeah,
Yep. You
yeah.
got to do this, guys.
And then so the opportunities and threats, the external element of this is just looking outside. And remember, keep in mind, like list it as opportunities and threats, but recognize anything you put as a threat, because especially with men and this unquenchable burning desire to fix things. It's like, as soon as something goes into a threat category, it's like, no, Jerry, I can fix that. That doesn't need to be there. No, it's okay. Like, just relax. And so opportunities, what are the opportunities out there? Well, I listen to this great podcast called Rudder Nation or Beyond the Rut. And, love that podcast. And I find value from that, or I commute to work. And so what are other podcasts, or what are other things that I can listen to that are going to improve what's going on? I mean, turn off the AM radio, turn off the sports radio, turn off, change the Sirius channel, whatever. There's an opportunity in your commute to work to be able to grow. So just, you start listing out things outside of yourself. Maybe a threat might be that you're new to the area and you don't know anybody that can help watch your kids, so you and your wife can go out and date. Cool. List that down. Mm-hmm. And you're just gathering data. We're discovering what's going on. And now what you do with that data, just like Jerry, you felt like when that argument with your wife at the door slamming, and you felt, wait a minute, our kids saw that, but they didn't see the resolution. Yeah. Or with me, where I loved how you put it, because up until that point, up until my man-sized tantrum, I had just said what I needed to say to move on. But at that moment, I had an opportunity. Okay, I have this discovery. What am I going to do with it? Yeah. And so that's what comes next. First, we need to take the time though to really understand where we're at from a judgment-free, honest evaluation, just like you would do in business.
Yeah. How much did knowing your values help you make the right decision whether it's that moment on the top of the stairs or anytime you do an analysis of where you are currently? How much do knowing your values play a role in that?
It's critical. So I teach the 3D family framework is what I put together. And this is these are the foundational steps to strengthen your family and build them into who they need to be. And the first piece of this stage, the first D, is discover. And one of the key steps as part of this foundation is to discover your values. And essentially what that looks like, Jerry, is that, so we do this audit, this analysis of where am I at? And we also, though, we need a vision to understand of where we want to go. And just like you talked about the point A and the point B in any kind of journey, the values become, okay, when that's where I'm going. And let's use hiking. We talked about Grand Canyon, we talked about hiking. So let's use that with our analogy. Again, I love analogies. It's the way I speak.
So here we go.
An analogy about hiking. It's a perfect match. So if I want to hike across the Grand Canyon, let's say we want to do that, Jerry, I would die if you were like, Joe, let's meet up. Let's do this. This is great. Let's go in October. I'd be like, sure, Jerry, but I'm going to die. I would not be able to do it. So if I go, okay, I am committed to that goal. Mm-hmm. So who do I need to be in order to achieve that? Well, I need to be someone that eats healthy. I need to be someone that consistently exercises. I need to be somebody that I can, really enjoys being outside, and it's not a day trip. So I need to be somebody that is okay carrying a backpack around. But there's all these different things that I need to figure out about who I need to be when I'm that person hiking the Grand Canyon with you. Yeah. So in family, too often, man, Jerry, I tell you what, too often we create a vision, and our vision consists of being on a beach in Bali, with the little drink and the umbrella and somebody bringing us out a meal while we relax in our chairs, and the kids are off in the sand splashing in the ocean. And that's great, but that is not the kind of vision that we're going to create that's going to provide the most powerful movement.
Yeah.
The real vision is going to be when you marry everything that you're doing in practical with family, and you're able to create your ideal day that would be an ordinary, everyday, beautiful, powerful day. So that's the vision we want. So my vision for my family and the time that we're going to spend and the things that we do together, and I have that all mapped out. What kind of man am I in that situation? What kind of relationships do my wife and I have? How are we communicating? And so values are essential to that. Mm-hmm. And values drive our decisions. I'll tell you a quick story and then I'll stop talking. Over a year ago, my wife, so my youngest was born on the 4th of July. Oh. And yes, we named her Constitution.
Nice.
No, we didn't. That would be traumatic.
I was trying to be nice. I was like, I don't know what to say. That's very bold of you.
We named her Declaration of Independence. No, her name's Arya, which is funny because you brought up Game of Thrones earlier, and yes. Arya became popular through Game of Thrones, but I've never watched Game of Thrones. Oh. So we didn't know it was a character on Game of Thrones. Apparently she's pretty awesome. So yeah. it was a good pair to make there, but anyway, so quick story. Didn't I say something about a quick story?
Yeah.
I don't know if that happens. Like I said, everybody, not a communicator, not my superpower. We learned that, right? Translator's my superpower. So anyway, 4th of July, and my wife's from a small town, and she had taken the kids up to the small town and was going to participate in this 4th of July parade and just do all kinds of festivities. Man, I tell you what, 4th of July, Independence Day in small towns is the best. They go all out. It's amazing. So they had gone up early. I had to stay to do some business things, and I was going to go meet them up there. But in order for me to make the parade, it's about a 4.5-hour drive. And in order for me to be there in time for the parade, I would have to leave at like 2:30 in the morning to get to them, and then where they were going to leave for the parade and go get their spot. And I am not a morning person. I would more likely be somebody to stay up till 2:30 in the morning, but I knew that wouldn't be safe with a 4.5-hour drive. And so I just told my wife and kids, I said, I love you guys. I'm not going to be there for the parade, but I'll be there after the parade. And that way we can do Arya's birthday, and then we'll go see the fireworks that night. They're like, okay, sounds good. And then I'm sitting in my lazy boy chair watching something on Netflix. And we've got our values that we printed out and like poster size canvas on our wall. And one of those values is to be adventurous. And it's described as doing things that allow us to create memories as a family that we hold on to. And there's other things to that. And I'm sitting there and it's like 10 o'clock at night. And I just started this movie and I'm thinking, be adventurous. What's something I could do that would be adventurous and be in line with that value? And I went to bed right away. I woke up at 2:30 in the morning. Didn't tell my wife and kids, and they had just gotten up and they were gonna have breakfast and then head out for the parade. And I pulled up and I walk in and they're eating breakfast and and it was just this beautiful, powerful moment. And the only reason that moment happened was because I had determined, we had determined what our values would be. And I, as the father, as the husband, was committed to our family values.
Boom. Right there. Oh, man. I think that's a good spot for us to start Oh, man. Hit pause, guys. Let that sink in for a bit. But then for us, we'll just keep recording. So for folks to reach out to you and to get more of this, I know you mentioned your podcast Forward with Joe is on hiatus, but that doesn't mean folks can't just go and listen to it. I believe it's still on Apple Podcasts, and I mean that's where I listen to my podcast. So I'm assuming it's everywhere else like Spotify and Google Podcasts and so on. But then you've got your website forwardwithjoe.com. What are some other places folks can reach out to you, and what do you have that's coming up? Because I know you have Interview Valet helping you get out there for a reason. So, what is that thing that you're on mission with right now that folks should know about?
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I'm putting together some resources for Rudder Nation. So they can go to forwardwithjoe.com/beyond the rut. And there's going to be some resources there. And really there's anything you want. You can get there's anywhere from just getting a checklist or getting on the newsletter to scheduling a free call with me and in between. So just some different things I want to provide to the Rudder Nation. And then as far as other places to engage, anybody who wants to connect with me on social media channels, I am at the Joe Pomeroy on all social media channels. It's not an arrogant thing. It was a consistent branding thing. I couldn't just get Joe Pomeroy. So we went with the Joe Pomeroy. And I say that in humility. So, but Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn are probably the places that I'm most active as far as that goes. But yeah, go check out forwardwithjoe.com/beyond the rut. And it can kind of start connecting that way. And then what I've got coming up is the most important thing to me, Jerry, is family. Mm-hmm. There is so much going on outside of our homes. We talk about SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. There are so many things that appear to be threats. And the problem too often is that we think we have time. We think once I finish this thing, I'm not ready yet. You had a really powerful episode. It was episode 264 with Ron Worley.
Yes.
And you guys brought up this question: if you had 5 years to live, and after everybody goes to the website and starts engaging and stuff, then go listen to episode 264. Really great episode. And I started thinking, I was listening to that and I was like, yeah, absolutely. Some of the comments that you and Ron made and just about the emphasis we need to put on taking action now. Well, what if you only have 5 years to influence your kids? What if you only have 5 years to give your kids the foundation they need to succeed? What if you only have 5 years to create a lifetime bond with your kids? Here's the scary part, Jerry. We don't even have 5 years. The way things are going, how quickly kids are influenced by peers at schools, by teachers that may not have values aligned with ours, by social media platforms, by what's on TV. You can even look at some of the direction that Disney's going and things that used to be something that was a great way to teach values. And that may or may not align with what you want for your kids. But really what it comes down to, you must fight for your family. We cannot be passive parents. We can no longer be passive fathers, passive mothers. We must proactively parent. And so whatever you got from today, whatever you learned, whatever you discovered, just like sitting at the top of the stairs, just like when Jerry was feeling impressed that, wow, our kids haven't seen what's going on, please act. Please take action. Please be proactive. You can do that by keep listening to Beyond the Rut. You can do that by going to my website and engaging with me further, following Jerry or I on social media. But if you only have 5 years to influence your kids and to set that foundation that's going to determine the rest of your relationship with them, let's start today. Because when we save the family, we will save the world.
Awesome. Joe, it was great to have you on this show. And I definitely want to keep in touch with you. And when you bring Forward with Joe back online, if you want Ron on your show, I'll definitely connect y'all.
Well, I want you on my show, Jerry. When I get going again, I'm going to have you on my show.
I'm in. Definitely.
Perfect.
Awesome. Thank you so much.